If you've been playing Pokemon Champions Regulation MB VGC, you've probably fought against a lot of weather, specifically Mega Charizard Y setting up the sun, as well as rain teams with Pelipper, Politoed, Archaludon, Mega Swampert, and several others. These are some of the strongest teams and strategies in the format right now, but you might be tired of fighting against them. So today I wanted to introduce a Sand team that I think is one of the best teams in the format right now and can counter these compositions quite nicely. You see, Mega Tyranitar is a very valuable Mega Evolution in a weather-based metagame because, of course, you can immediately change the weather into Sand even before you Mega Evolve, and the flexibility of Mega Evolving to set up the Sand once again can give you a very good matchup into things like Mega Charizard in particular. Given that Mega Charizard is just still dominating the format, Mega Tyranitar is one of the best Pokemon you can use to counter it. So today we'll be trying out a Sand team that has been really rising in popularity. This team came out at the end of the previous ranked season and since then has been adapted by a lot of different players and has done very well both in-person best of 3 tournament play as well as on the ladder. You've got 2 Megas in Tyranitar and Staraptor, a Life Orb Nasty Plot Gholdengo which can quickly boost and dominate teams, Excadrill which can match up really well into a lot of common Pokemon, Sinistcha for healing, and a Milotic which is a glue that holds the team together and can really deter threats for Tyranitar and Excadrill. Hey guys, Aaron CybertronVGC here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the Pokemon Champions VGC ladder and provide live commentary as I go. I know that a lot of people are feeling a little bit burnt out from the format, especially because of how much sun and rain there is in particular. I have been featuring a lot of really strong rain and sun teams on the channel because those are just some of the best teams in the format right now, but today I wanted to give you all a team that I think can match up quite nicely into some of those compositions and also just have a lot of very powerful strategies. So we'll be covering a Sand team today. I covered Sand previously in the format with Houndstone and Mega Venusaur as well as Rotom Wash, and so this is a slightly different take on it. If you want to see me play with a different version of Sand, I'll also link that down in the description below. But I think right now this is definitely one of the fastest rising teams in the metagame that you should pay attention to. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you're interested in just the battles, check out the timestamps down below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. If you're interested in trying out the team, the Replica ID is on the screen, and there's also an accompanying Pokepaste down in the description below. This is a team that utilizes Sand, of course, with Mega Tyranitar as well as Excadrill. And instead of something like Dragon Dance on the Tyranitar, it has high horsepower. The idea behind Tyranitar is that, first of all, it's just an incredible Pokemon, obviously, into Mega Charizard. And even if you don't Mega Evolve it, it can still be very powerful. So the team has 2 Mega Evolutions in Tyranitar and Staraptor, and you'll actually often bring both into the battle and flex your Mega Evolution based on what your opponent has brought. What's really neat about these Pokemon is that you basically can get a lot of value out of them even if you don't Mega Evolve. For example, Staraptor just for Intimidate and Tailwind alone can be very good, and Brave Bird still does a lot of damage even if you don't Mega Evolve. Similarly with Tyranitar, Rock Slide, still very powerful obviously into opposing Charizards and still gives you weather control. Now, what's also interesting about this team is I think a lot of people see Sand and they think, oh, I always go Tyranitar Excadrill. Excadrill is actually not as common of a member as you might think. It can be very good, of course, if your opponent has Mega Floette and Fairy types in general. Earthquake and Rock Slide obviously gives you really good coverage as well. But Gholdengo is actually kind of like the secret MVP between the Steel types here. The Gholdengo on this team is incredibly bulky. One thing I also want to quickly note is that I'm trying out the team creator's initial version. They made some updates, including Gholdengo Spread, which has a little bit less defense and slightly more special defense. So once again, I'll link the report down in the description below. I think the other change is Excadrill running high horsepower over Earthquake, but everything else basically is the same. So if you want to have a little bit more special coverage, then of course you can take a little bit of defense investment out. But basically, this Gholdengo is incredibly bulky. I think it's truly just an amazing Gholdengo spread, and it's really difficult to knock out. The idea basically is that you will get a Nasty Plot off, and at +2, you still threaten with one-hit knockouts. Sinistcha gives you really good healing with the Hospitality, as well as redirection support with Rage Powder, and Life Orb Gholdengo, I think, is just such a powerful Pokemon. Yes, Make It Rain has been nerfed pretty substantially, but this is still, I think, just a huge special attacker in the format, right? So Gholdengo is actually really nice with this team. You can often lead it with things like Staraptor or Sinistcha. With Sinistcha, you pressure with redirection immediately. With Staraptor, you get an Intimidate off, making your opponent's offensive output even worse. And to round things out, you've got a Milotic on the team. The Milotic here is a really nice glue that holds everything together. The biggest counter to Tyranitar Excadrill are things like Intimidate from Incineroar as well as Garchomp in ground types, right? And so Milotic really beats both of those. Garchomp's going to struggle to deal much into Milotic, as you can see, super physically defensive set here. And the Milotic is also trained so that after an Icy Wind, you will outspeed max speed Garchomp. In addition, Incineroar obviously loves going up against T-Tar and Exca and being able to intimidate and pivot out, but the Milotic basically deters your opponents from clicking Incineroar. And if they bring it, well, then you can punish them really heavily with either Milotic or Mega Staraptor, right? Because both of those can boost their stats if Incineroar comes into the battle. Another thing to call out, by the way, is that the Sinistcha on this team has Shadow Ball. The idea behind Shadow Ball is that it gives you some additional typing coverage, really good into opposing Sinistchas. Also can help out against Archaludon, for example, if you end up in an endgame against it and lost your Gholdengo early, because you obviously don't have a lot of other special damage. And so I can really drastically turn the matchup in your favor against those Pokemon in particular. Staraptor on this team, super fast, as you can see, and super bulky as well. This is not a Staraptor that's meant to basically get stat boosts from its teammates. It's more a Pokemon that can Tailwind, can do a lot of damage, and can also potentially Mega Evolve depending on the right matchup. Finally, I think the one thing to call out here is that on the Tyranitar, you also have a lot of speed investment, and so you'll outpace Adamant, Basculegion if you are Mega Evolved, which is really nice, right? And so that's actually a pretty big benchmark to hit. A lot of Basculegions are still Adamant with Focus Sash, and so you break Sash with Sand and then just knock them out with a knockoff, for example. And then the Milotic is 1 speed point faster than Gholdengo. Milotic has Haze here, and the main point of Haze is so that you can make it rain with Gholdengo, and then the following turn, Haze immediately, then click Make It Rain once again. So I think Haze, a really interesting move, obviously can get rid of opposing stat boosts as well, but I think on this team is actually more often used to get rid of the stat drops from Make It Rain. But you can consider other moves like Life Dew or even Ice Beam, for example, for even stronger coverage into Garchomp, or something like Recover, for example. Overall, I think that this is just an incredibly cohesive Sand team. Like, the core of Tyranitar, Excadrill, Milotic was incredibly popular back in 2015, and so with Charizard being as strong as ever, I think Mega Tyranitar in particular, a really, really valuable pick in the format. Rain has also been picking up. You've got a lot of answers to Archaludon in Excadrill. The high horsepower in Tyranitar gives you some additional typing coverage, as well as things like Life Orb, Gholdengo, with that nasty plot, which can just quickly take care of Arch. And so, yeah, really, really cohesive and well-built team. Before diving into my personal analysis, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Yoshima, the original team creator. They are a Brazilian player living in Japan, and they finished 132nd place at the end of the previous ranked season with this composition. I covered it a few weeks ago in top teams to try out in the format right now, and I think since then the team has only really increased in popularity. I've seen it a lot. It is very strong. I see a lot of different players in Champion tier with different variations of it, and multiple players have used it in best of 3 open team sheet tournaments to really great success as well. So huge credits to them, because first of all, they built the team, shared it with everyone, and also wrote an incredible team guide for it. This report covers the individual Pokemon and what the specific EV spreads were meant to do, so please go check it out. I'll link it down in the description below. I've linked their Twitter down in the description below as well, and it even offers specific game plans against some of the most common team compositions that you'll see in the format. And so huge credits to them. I think right now we're in an interesting time in VGC where, with Worlds coming up, you know, a lot of the top players competing at the World Championships are likely testing a lot of their things more in private, and so we don't get to see as many metagame advancements as I would say we normally do, but this team, in my opinion, has pushed the metagame forward and is definitely one of the absolute best Sand teams to try out in the format right now, so huge credits to them. In terms of how to play with the team, once again, please go check out the initial team report, because it gives very targeted suggestions for some of the most common matchups in the format. I've condensed and summarized a couple that I've liked going with personally, but please go check out the report. Staraptor Gholdengo is a really interesting lead because you get an immediate Intimidate off, protecting your Gholdengo further from strong physical damage. The idea behind this is that you can immediately go for a nasty plot, or even just start putting out pressure with damage, right? Something like Tailwind Make It Rain, Brave Bird Make It Rain, Brave Bird Shadow Ball, all powerful. This is generally suggested into those common teams with Whimsicott, Charizard, and Mega Floette, with the idea being that they often actually lead Basculegion, so you intimidate Basculegion, and Gholdengo suddenly is actually very good, threatening Life Orb Shadow Ball into Basculegion, or even a nasty plot, for example, afterwards. Tyranitar is often a very strong pick in the back, and you can flex between Milotic and Excadrill. Milotic is often really powerful, for example, into teams with Garchomp. Excadrill can be brought if you think your opponent might drop the Charizard and bring Floette instead, so then you have double steal coverage for Mega Floette specifically. Sinistcha Gholdengo is actually a really powerful lead as well, and I think that often people don't think about leading it very much because, of course, leading Sinistcha and not getting value out of Hospitality immediately might feel a little bit bad, but this can actually be really good into opposing rain teams with Mega Swampert, because Mega Swampert's really going to struggle into Sinistcha. For example, against Swampert, you can protect your Gholdengo or even switch out into Staraptor and immediately start going for Matcha Gachas. You can flex your Mega Evolution between Staraptor and Tyranitar, but generally I think Tyranitar Mega evolves a little bit more frequently for weather control, and one thing to think about is you want to either get Nasty Plot boost with Gholdengo or get a knockoff into Archaludon, because Archaludon obviously will be on these rain compositions. Removing its leftovers suddenly just makes it a lot easier to deal with. If you are up against opposing teams that are dedicated to only Sun, for example, Charizard and Venusaur, Tyranitar and Excadrill is a really viable lead. The idea behind this is that you can protect on the first turn, try to bait out a Mega Evolution, and even if they don't Mega Evolve on the second turn, you can generally Mega and win the Weather War that way in the opening turns. Milotic is a really strong pick because those teams will often carry Pokemon like Incineroar and Garchomp, for example, and you can flex between Gholdengo or Staraptor as your final pick. One other thing to think about is that this team obviously has multiple physical attackers in Staraptor, Tyranitar, and Excadrill, so opponents often will think about leading Intimidate, whether it be something like their own Staraptor or Incineroar. And you can lead Milotic to counteract that, right? Milotic, I find, is a very valuable lead potentially into teams with Intimidate because it basically says, look, if you bring your Intimidate, sure, you reduce the damage output of one of my attackers, but then Milotic gets a big boost immediately. And so Mega Tyranitar and Milotic, for example, can be a really strong lead, especially into teams like Hard Trick Room, which often lead Incineroar to guarantee a Trick Room, and so Milotic then can thrive, for example. Sinistcha, Gholdengo, often quite powerful in the back, but of course you can flex Excadrill in particular in combination with the Tyranitar. So once again, please go check out the team report for different ways that you can play with the team against specific combos. These are some that I've liked in my time playing with the team, but it honestly feels very, very flexible. In terms of weaknesses and things to watch out for, I think that overall the team is incredibly cohesive, so I want to talk about ways that you can deal with specific combinations on the team. I think first of all, Tyranitar and Excadrill, obviously being the Sand duo, is something that people often gravitate towards, and this duo can just overwhelm you if you don't have the right tools, right? So one thing to think about is obviously fighting type damage and fighting type attackers, especially if they have proper speed control. For example, a Sneasler can be incredibly threatening, especially if it's under Tailwind or White Herb is activated and Focus Sash has been broken on the Excadrill. Tyranitar's coverage can feel a little bit awkward, especially into opposing fighting types, because you just can't do very much damage into them. And high horsepower on the Tyranitar gives you some unique coverage, but at the end of the day, it won't threaten with one-hit knockouts often. So you also have to think about that, right? King Gambit with low kick, for example, with a Focus Sash or with a lot of bulk can be kind of annoying. Speed control in general, right? Tailwind to match the Sand Rush on Excadrill can be big, and so speed control plus something like Life Orb Garchomp, for example, can be spooky. Sash is a really big deal on Excadrill, so if you're able to break the Sash, it suddenly becomes a lot less threatening because then you can trade quite positively against it often. I also think having enough bulk to survive Excadrill's big attacks, right? Surviving an Iron Head with a Fairy type, for example, or surviving a ground type attack like Earthquake or the high horsepower if you want to run that can be a big deal as well. And Intimidate obviously can be good into this duel, but you have to be very careful because of the Milotic on the team, so I didn't write that down. But if your team, for example, has other things that often scare away Milotic, then Intimidate can become a lot stronger. Now, Gholdengo and Milotic are two Pokemon that I think can be really difficult to deal with if you don't basically get enough damage onto them quickly enough. So for Gholdengo, I think Dark types and faster Ghost types are always really valuable, especially opposing King Gambit. I think a well-played King Gambit can be quite spooky for this composition. Now, the thing is that you also have Staraptor, so you can bring Staraptor potentially into those Gambits, but just be a little bit cautious. But Gambit is something that, of course, can check Gholdengo quite effectively. Fire and ground type damage can be really good. Like, I had a match where I was playing against Charizard, one weather control, but a heat wave even outside of the sun still basically knocked out my Gholdengo, which just had a little bit of chip damage. And then, of course, if you can defensively switch in on Make It Rain, that's a really big deal, right? So if you beta Make It Rain out, especially after Gholdengo has boosted itself and it doesn't actually get that much damage off while bringing it back down to neutral, that's a big deal. For Milotic, I think strong special burst damage is really valuable, so Rotom Wash and Sylveon are two examples of good Pokemon that can trade quite positively into it. Grass-type Pokemon can also be annoying if they don't take much from a Icy Wind, and so Mega Venusaur and Sinistcha are two really prime examples. Note that on this team, several moves can miss. Make It Rain, Icy Wind, Rock Slide, Matcha Gotcha. If, the team hits its moves, it feels absolutely amazing, but there are a lot of times where you will run into a low probability miss, and it can feel very costly. Finally, note that when you bring Staraptor and Tyranitar into a matchup, you have to think hard about who Mega Evolves, because sometimes it's easy to just think, I can Mega Evolve right now, get value out of a turn, but then in the long run, that can punish you if you did not actually think about how it can fit in the overall big picture. I also think that if Staraptor faints or Milotic takes too much damage early, suddenly strong physical burst damage can be very scary. So for example, late game Basculegion with Last Respects or a Life Orb Garchomp with Earthquake can be spooky if positioned properly. So I do feel like the team honestly feels like it has resources and has the right tools to beat so many of the common teams out there right now, but you do have to pilot it correctly. And I do find that in my experience, in a lot of the losses, it is either due to maybe not necessarily picking the right 4 Pokemon, right? I think, oh, because I have this one Pokemon, surely you can't go with this strategy, right? Like I played against a dual Rain Sun team where I was like, oh, you kind of have to lean into Rain because Sun is so weak into Tyranitar, but then they just led Charizard Venusaur. I didn't lead Tyranitar. I led like Sinistcha Gholdengo, and I was already playing from behind right away, right? In addition, I think Gholdengo in particular, I find is a really amazing Pokemon, but there's a little bit of variance with Make It Rain, and I've had times where basically because it's a little bit slower, I just get crit immediately, or I miss Make It Rain, and that can feel extra costly as well, or get flinched, for example. So these are not exhaustive, just some things that I've noted from my personal experience playing with the team. Milotic, Staraptor, Raichu, Serena, Kingambit, Whimsicott. Very interesting. Everything on our team is definitely threatened by something on their end. Gholdengo is very good into practically everything. Let's not Kingambit. Staraptor really has to worry about activating Milotic on their end. If I were them, I'd be worried about my Milotic. Their Raichu would be very good. Mainly like to clear their Gambit as quickly as I can. The question is, do we think they go Raichu, or do we think they go Staraptor still? I'm thinking Sinistcha, Gholdengo. Tyranitar, Excadrill. This was such an interesting matchup. I think if like they don't have Milotic, I would just go Staraptor, but them having Milotic and Gambit really makes me not want to bring Staraptor. Whimsicott, Raptor. Okay. So they didn't commit to Raichu. They might Brave Bird on turn 1. I'm okay going Protect, Nasty Plot here, I think. And then turn 2, I can potentially switch Sinistcha out into Tyranitar, go for Make It Rain, or even a second Nasty Plot. Self-Fake Tears makes sense. Dual Wing Beat. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna switch in Tyranitar here. I don't think we need to give up the boost necessarily, so I'm gonna Shadow Ball Whimsicott. They might go Self-Fake Tears again. I could see them going for like a Charm as well. Yep. Okay. Cool. Man, Milotic actually would have crushed it here because I would have gotten a competitive boost and then just made a bit of haze. So KO Whimsicott while keeping our +2 boost right now. And one of the best things, in my opinion, about Gholdengo in this format is that it completely walls the Raptor. I mean, +2 dual Wing Beat will do some damage, but it's not terrible. I think this is where the game gets interesting. I assume Kingambit comes in for my opponent. Yep. So you can always Sucker Punch Gholdengo, right? Or you could just Close Combat Tyranitar, Kowtow, Cleave. Like, I think the switch back into Sinistcha seems kind of obvious right now. So I'm actually leaning towards going for a Mega, high horsepower, and a King Gambit, protect with Gholdengo. Because I think Gholdengo is by far the most important. And I think T-Tar switching into Sinistcha is fairly obvious. What they could do, if I were in their shoes, is consider close combat and kowtow into Tyranitar here. Okay, they sucker. Nice. Yeah, so I think they predict Sinistcha to come in. We don't give it to them, which is big. Shuko or... okay. That is unfortunately a big miss. What do we want to go for now? I think the most interesting play would probably be protect T-Tar. Nasty plot again with Gholdengo. Still taking forever to connect for the turn. Wonder what's happening. Man, that high horsepower would have put King Gambit in Make It Rain range, I think, unfortunately. I also want to think about conserving my sand, potentially. I'm going to go Protect Plot. Okay, yeah, they CC. We survive on one. Wow. Yeah, this is where I think if I had hit, it would have made my life so much easier. Still gonna go for a high horsepower here. Protect with Gholdengo. This Gholdengo EV spread is so good. Like, if you want to use Life Orb Nasty Plot Gholdengo in this format, I cannot recommend this spread enough. What was my best play to counter what they did last turn? Switch in City, maybe? Curious if they CC again here. Okay, they sucker. And dual Wing Beat, yeah. Ooh, although that's not necessarily good, right? Because now they could theoretically, like, dual Wing Beat Gholdengo. I can switch in Cine here. I actually think my best play is switch in Sinistcha, go for a double right now. Yeah, but we don't get it. They do sucker, okay. And close combat, whoa. That's huge, nice. Okay, that is a big, big deal, because now I finally have the positioning to just go for Rage Powder. So here's the thing. I think if you're my opponent, who do you have as your last one? Milotic? Okay, that last turn completely got us back into it, even without the double. Like, Rage Powder Make It Rain is kind of the obvious play, right? I think I'm okay going for it. They should protect Staraptor, but it looks like they didn't, which means I should just double KO here. As long as I don't miss. Okay, nice. I'm glad I didn't overthink that turn. Let's see, do we hit? Nice. +4, make it rain. Double KO. Woof! So I always knew Gholdengo was going to be the carry in this game. It was a crit on Gambit, but we're at +4. I don't think that mattered. But yeah, I think my life would have been a lot easier if that first high horsepower hit. But we were able to maneuver around Gambit, which was big. So their last one's going to be Milotic, Raichu, or Serena. I think I am okay bringing out Tyranitar first to get the sand up, because the sand will add up trip damage. It's going to be Serena, fine by me. Yeah, I'm okay just going for knockoff here. And Shadow Ball. The idea behind the double protect, by the way, was I was thinking they might double in a Gholdengo with like Sucker Punch. We're actually faster than Serena, so you can see the speed on Tyranitar also paying off. Looks like they're wide lens. Power Whip will KO us, but we'll KO them in return. This is a really interesting team, though, right? They are champion tier trainers, obviously very, very good. And it is a new take on... Like, I think, you know, obviously we've seen the combination of Whimsicott and Staraptor. That's not anything crazy, but they had some interesting support in Raichu, Milotic, Serena as well. But yeah, basically the idea behind the double protect turn was that I figured they might go like dual Wing Beat and Sucker Punch into Gholdengo. Or that they might have to respect Tyranitar going for high horsepower and me going for a double protect with Gholdengo. So by switching in Sinistcha, I hedged for close combat and Sucker Punch, which is exactly what ended up happening. And if they went dual Wing Beat Sucker Punch and I got the double protect off, then the following turn I could Rage Powder, make it rain safely. So part of what makes the team really nice, as you can see, is the defensive synergies in switching, right? Sinistcha being immune to the things that would really scare you, especially that close combat from Mega Staraptor is big. And then also being able to reverse switch, I think, between the Tyranitar and Sinistcha was huge for us in this game. And yeah, I think this is a sand team, but like Gholdengo definitely is one of the primary stars. And I think a Pokemon that comes out in almost every match, basically. If you've been enjoying the content, it would really mean a lot to me if you considered leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton, and I really appreciate everyone's support, especially as we just passed 300,000 subscribers. I, of course, have all kinds of different battle features if you're interested in seeing other Mega evolutions, like Mega Raichu X, for example, and some really fun ones like Mega Malamar and Mega Mawile. Check out the videos linked down in the description below. Anyway, thanks so much as always for joining me. Okay, we've got Rain here. I just featured a team that was very similar to this, but with Vivian over Incineroar and Politoed over Pelipper. So if you want to see me play with a somewhat similar concept, you can check out the video down below. I think generally against Rain, the Sinistcha and the Gholdengo is actually pretty decent. Because Sinistcha pressures the Swampert immediately. You know, it's weird. You would think you'd want Tyranitar in this matchup. Yeah, I think you want Tyranitar in this. Well, I was gonna say, like, I think Staraptor is still interesting as maybe a non-Mega. Yeah, I'm down to go with Cine Gholdengo, Staraptor, and T-Tar here. Like, I actually think Excadrill and Milotic are actually both bringable into this composition as well. But I think generally the recommended core is Sinistcha plus Gholdengo lead, and then Tyranitar Staraptor in the back. Gengar Peli. Okay. I can always switch in T-Tar here. I could also Rage Powder a Nasty Plot. Personally think I'm okay going switch in Tyranitar Protect turn 1. This is an interesting lead. Peli Gengar. And Gengar swaps immediately into Arch, maybe? Instant. Okay. I feel like right now they have nothing for Tyranitar, which is great news for us. Could have Nasty Plotted there on turn 1 or Shadow Ball, but The Tailwind. Tailwind is fine. I mean, Instant now can theoretically pressure Flare Blitz, but often on these teams, you don't even have Flare Blitz because it's like a Perish team, right? So it could be a Parting Shot into Tyranitar, Fake Out into T-Tar, Peli Switch maybe. I do think Pelipper switches here, to be honest. If I were them, I would go Parting Shot into Tyranitar, switch Pelipper out into Gengar, maybe. So I'm kind of down to just Rock Slide and Shadow Ball into Pelipper. Yep. Arch. Okay, that's fine. I think based on the 4 that they've shown me, they have no answer really to the Gholdengo. So now my goal should be to just set up Nasty Plot. I think Knockoff was probably a stronger play there. Getting rid of lefties on Arch would have been huge. The question is, do they bring Pelipper in here or Mega Gengar? Oh, great. It's Pelipper. Okay. I don't mind that. That does a lot. Is that a crit? No, a crit would have just KO'd, right? Yeah, it's just that strong. Nice. That's really good damage, too. Okay. If we knock out our Archaludon, Tyranitar just hard wins this game. I'm personally not opposed to switching in Staraptor this turn, protecting with Gholdengo. They might Electro Shock KO Staraptor, but that's honestly fine. Like, I think Staraptor fainting to grant me a free switch in back into T-Tar is all I need here. Basically, you have to think about how they can distribute damage on a Gholdengo, and it's going to be Electro Shot from Archaludon and Shadow Ball from the Gengar, as well as maybe like a Dark-type attack, like Third Chop from Incineroar. So we basically want to ideally deny those attacks onto Gholdengo. This turn I could have just said, you know what, I'm going to risk it. Shadow Ball into your Arch. Yep, Weather Ball into Gold. Electro Shot. Like I said, I don't mind Staraptor fainting here. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. And now, what this grants me the ability to do, is last turn of Tailwind, is switch Tyranitar in, so you can't go for a Electro Shot and Nasty Plot. The Staraptor here was brought mainly to deal with Swampert modes, right? Like, leading Sinistcha Gholdengo covers for Swampert, and you can go for Matcha Gotcha immediately. You can switch in Staraptor for Intimidate. You can even theoretically flex your Mega there. They bring it in, Sin, fine by me. The switch is fairly obvious. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they Flash Cannon Staraptor, but I don't care, honestly, because right now, the idea is to just get Gholdengo boosted. And I still have Sinistcha to heal it up later on. And Archaludon protects. I think that is honestly probably going to spell their death sentence. Okay. We basically always get a free Shadow Ball into the Archaludon slot right now. I think the main thing we want to be a little bit cautious of is them positioning Gengar out. But I think I'm down to switch in Staraptor here for an Intimidate and further Weather Control and Shadow Ball Arch. Because at this point, I can Shadow Ball Arch, I can Shadow Ball Pelipper, I can Shadow Ball the Mega Gengar. And like I said, if Archaludon faints, you don't really have a way to deal with Tyranitar at this point. So I think part of what makes Mega Tyranitar and this team so fun is that Rain and Sun are everywhere right now, and it actually feels like you have a pretty great matchup against both. And I love the team's ability to like flex Staraptor as just a, you know, non-mega pick. And they go for a double. Okay, cool. I actually think a double is their strongest play there, because if you don't, like, something is fainting, right? But now we have cleared the door for our Mega Tyranitar, which is fantastic. Throat Chop is fine. Presumably they bring, you know, Gengar in. I think with Gengar in, what I'll do is just go for Protect with Gholdengo and Tailwind. Yeah, this Gengar still hasn't even Mega Evolved, which is kind of funny. So I theoretically could switch out this turn, but I don't think we need to. I think Tailwind plus Protect is fine. If I wanted to switch, what would I go for? I'd probably switch Staraptor out into Sinistcha just to get the Healy on Gholdengo. But the problem with that play is that they just straight up double up onto me with Shadow Ball plus Throat Chop. Whereas Tailwind here ensures that Gholdengo will outpace Gengar. The main interesting thing after this turn, I think, is Gengar should probably Shadow Ball into Gholdengo, or maybe Protect and they Throat Chop again. But then, if you basically attack this turn, Gengar theoretically can Protect the following turn, right? Oh, never mind. Okay, this is the dream. Perfect. I'm so happy to showcase what regular Staraptor can do, because it's actually so good for us right now. Yeah, that Tailwind speed control, amazing. Okay, they pivot out. That makes sense. You bring Pelly back in, you do get weather control. So the interesting thing with Pelipper back in now is obviously the Gengar can switch in to the Incineroar. The debate here is, do they switch Gengar out into Incin, or do they go for a double Protect? I'm personally leaning towards actually going for Brave Bird and Make It Rain here, which covers for, I think, practically every option they could go for, which is... Okay, they stay in, and they don't Wide Guard. Cool. So that should just be game, I think. But basically, I thought they could have switched Gengar out here. I don't want to Shadow Ball into Gengar and have them switch into Incin. Now, the risk in clicking Make It Rain here is that they could obviously Wide Guard, or they could go for a switch into Incin, right? But by going for Brave Bird and Make It Rain, basically it says, okay, well, if you switch in Incin, I think the Make It Rain and Brave Bird probably doesn't KO, but does a ton. Like, would you really Wide Guard there when I pressure Shadow Ball into your Gengar, right? And the reality is Mega Tyranitar is so strong in this matchup that, like, even if I lost Gholdengo and didn't get much off that turn, Tyranitar should still clean up the game for me because of how we dealt with Archaludon early on in the battle. If you can clear Archaludon, Mega Tyranitar can often just sweep with this team against rain teams. So, yeah. We have a mirror match. Oh, man. What in the world do you do in the mirror? I don't want to bring Tyranitar. Like, Gholdengo feels like it's the most important Pokemon, maybe? This is so interesting. Do we think they lead with Milotic? Like, I'm kind of interested in Staraptor, Gholdengo, Sinistcha, Excadrill. Here's the thing, like, I think Milotic is a really interesting Pokemon in that it is obviously very good in a Staraptor, T-Tar, and Exca, but very bad in a Sinistcha, Gholdengo. Okay. Their Intimidate goes first. And we're max speed, so it confirms the speed tie. Oh, man. I kind of want to just go Mega Tailwind here turn 1. Shadow Ball. They did Mega. Okay. Okay. I was expecting them to make the same play. Yeah, that's huge. And I'm guessing they didn't Mega because they might have Tyranitar in the back. But now, if that is the case, I feel like the game is over. Because I feel like this is a battle of the Gholdengos. Yeah, and they just bring T-Tar in. Okay. I mean, how do you deal with close combat now? My guess, by the way, is that they have Excadrill 4th. Let's say they have Excadrill 4th. What's the right sequencing here? Like, close combat into T-Tar is always pretty safe. I think they protect him Brave Bird, personally. I'm gonna just close combat, make it rain here. That makes sense. Okay. They say, you know what? I'm going to just push the Mega with Staraptor as well. I think that's the right play. Yeah. Then I maybe should have targeted Tyranitar there. We do get the close combat off first. They're going to Brave Bird us in return. Get Make It Rain. Oh, Staraptor just faints from sand. Nice. That should be game then, right? Like, I assume it's knockoff here to KO my gold. Yeah. I didn't want to close combat into T-Tar, have T-Tar protect, and then have Staraptor get a free attack off or switch into Excadrill, which is why I played the way I did. So it was good on them to, you know, attack with the Tyranitar there. I'm glad that the game actually, like, the speed ties didn't make a difference here, because that was what I was primarily worried about. But now I can bring in Sinistcha pretty cleanly, I think. Actually, why not just bring Excadrill out? If I bring Sinistcha, it means they could bring their Sinistcha, whereas Excadrill can always just Earthquake. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Pretty sure EQ should KO T-Tar at 55%, so it means I can just Brave Bird here. Even though we led the same thing, I think I actually had a pretty huge advantage in this matchup because I had Excadrill over Tyranitar. Like, I just didn't think Tyranitar contributed very much other than maybe a knockoff. And I was like, hey, if you bring Tyranitar, I get to take advantage of it, right? Okay, they go for Protect, which is smart. Maybe I could have gone Brave Bird plus Iron Head here into the Sinistcha. If they're running the exact same team here, though, there's no Trick Room, and without Trick Room, then there's really not much you can do. Okay, they're running a version with Trick Room. That's neat. Probably just go for Matcha plus Rock Slide right now. I'm not a close combat T-Tar. Switch Sinistcha in for healing. Yeah, of course, one of the changes you can make on this team is having Trick Room on Sinistcha. There's Shadow Ball and Matcha on this version for additional coverage. Yep, they don't Rage Powder, so as long as we don't flinch here, we should KO T-Tar, and that should just be game over. Rock Slide comes out. They do manage to flinch. Okay. That's okay, though. Their T-Tar should be faster. So I think we can just close combat here. And because we have Shadow Ball, just Shadow Ball Sinistcha. Because Excadrill is always going to beat T-Tar in a 1v1. Worst case would be they protect Sinistcha. Okay, yeah, they don't. And this is why they're Shadow Ball and Sinistcha, right? It's a pretty huge edge against opposing Sinnies. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, I felt like I should have won the game guaranteed after turn 1, right? That is just way too big of a lead. That if we lose, it is unacceptable, quite frankly. But I think my opponent made all the right plays to try to stay in it after turn 1. I think, yeah, honestly, in the mirror, it feels like if we both lose Staraptor Gholdengo, Tailwind plus whoever wins the speed tie between the Golds, or the Raptors, I should say, would kind of just win the game. But because they did not Mega. And I think, you know, they didn't Mega to have the flexibility. Wow, we just unlocked like a billion things there. They didn't Mega to have the flexibility of the Gholdengo. Or sorry, Megaing with the Tyranitar. But like, there's not much need to Mega T-Tar in this matchup, to be honest, anyway. And I think Tyranitar was actually more of a liability than not, which is why I prioritized Excadrill. Okay, we've got the classic Basculegion, Garchomp, Kingambit, Charizard, Whimsicott, and Floette. So the recommended flow with this is Staraptor, Gholdengo, T-Tar, and Milotic. I think the reality is it feels like all of the Pokemon can come out in this one, like especially the Excadrill, because obviously it can match up well into Whimsicott, Charizard, Kingambit. But the thing about Excadrill is if Tailwind is up, it's actually not that strong. And yeah, this is the classic lead that you see from the other side. So the nice thing here is you get the Intimidate immediately, right? Which means that we can actually just go for Brave Bird into Whimsicott and Shadow Ball into Basculegion to start. Because if we Brave Bird Whimsicott, then it just falls to a Sand Tick later on. Okay, great. Solid turn 1. Unless we get crit. Ah! That would have just been a KO. Whimsicott would have been down to Sash. It would have been an amazing position for us. Aw, it's a bummer. That is a bummer, folks. Okay, I think we can still win this for sure, though. That is the thing. If you, with Gholdengo being, you know, a little bit slow, like on turn 1, and in general, you are vulnerable to crits, right? So it happens. That was just super unfortunate because we were going for a knockout there. So if I bring in Tyranitar, they can go Moonblast into Staraptor, Wave Crash into T-Tar. Normally Scarf Basculegion on these teams anyway. Does Staraptor survive a Moonblast is my question. I think I can also switch Milotic in here, protect T-Tar this turn. Because then I can switch Staraptor back in for another Intimidate. Like, the crit is unfortunate, but there's no point in thinking about it in dwelling. Let's just focus on what we can do right now. Oh, interesting. Did so much. Wow, it's crazy it did that much actually, even with Intimidate. That's a little bit spooky. But the interesting thing here is you can't really bring out... I mean, you could bring out Charizard, but if you Mega Charizard, it's bad into Basque. They brought Floette. Yeah, like, Gholdengo was so necessary in this matchup. I think I kind of just lose to Floette now, to be honest. I don't really see a great path forward from here. If they Wave Crash T-Tar again and somehow don't knock out my Milotic, like I'm hoping an Icy win here. Switch out Raptor. Good choice on them to bring Floette though, by the way. Like I think turn 1, even if I don't get crit, we have a pretty favorable turn 1, but given the Floette pick, like Excadrill obviously would have been a lot stronger for us in this one. Oh, okay, hold on. That is actually, I think, the window of opportunity I needed. Wait, it's not even Scarf Basket Legion. It's Mystic Water then, isn't it? Okay. So now we've dropped their speed. Tailwind is still up for a turn, though. I'm still holding on to my Mega. My guess is that their last Pokemon is Garchomp. The main debate I'm having this turn is I think I want to protect my Milotic, Mega, Rock Slide. The hope is they switch into Garchomp and then Moonblast into my Milotic. Then with the Icy Wind speed drop on the Floette, the hope is next turn I can Rock Slide KO Floette, survive an attack from Garchomp, get an Icy Wind off. Because their Basket Legion is not Scarfed. Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I was looking for this turn at least. Okay. The problem is I think Milo might just faint to like a Life Orb Dragon Claw. We get a crit there. I don't know if... I think like 2 Rock Slides was going to KO anyway. But yeah, the question right now is can Milotic survive an attack? Because what we go for is now just an Icy Wind. And I think I'm okay clicking Rock Slide once more here. Like, they could protect Floette Earthquake right now. Yeah, I think that's the right play. Switch. Yeah, Earthquake KOs us anyway. Okay. I think this game was just too difficult to win after the crit turn 1, unfortunately. The Intimidate was just, like, such a big factor. We should one-shot Basket Legion in return, right? And it would have given us a pretty big lead. Like, I think the game plan is still solid. I also think my opponent did a good job bringing Float over Charizard, because if they bring Charizard, the Tyranitar kind of crushes it. So, if I were playing a best of 3, for example, the instant adjustment I would think about is bringing Excadrill instead to cover for Float a little bit better. But, yeah, I wish we could have seen how this game would have played out without the crit on turn 1. I think we were just at way too big of a deficit, unfortunately. But that's part of the game. Happens, right? And it is the downside of stacking stat drops on your opponent and trying to survive. Gardevoir, Basket Legion, Whimsicott, Garchomp, Charizard, Mousehold. Interesting. I think I'm okay going with Staraptor Gholdengo here because Whimsicott, Basket Legion is such a common lead from the opposing end with Tyranitar. Often it's Milotic as the 4th, but I think I like Excadrill a bit more here because it hedges for Gardevoir as the Mega pick. The problem with this, I think, is that we are slightly weaker in a Garchomp, so we might want a Mega Staraptor depending on how the early game looks. Garchomp wins. Okay. I mean, we get an Intimidate off here immediately, which is pretty good. To be honest, I'm not opposed to going, I think, for Brave Bird into Garchomp and just make it rain turn 1. Ideally, we knock out Chomp, bring Whimsicott down to Sash. If we knock out Garchomp, it clears the biggest threat to T-Tar and Exca in the back. And I'm holding on to Mega here because I think we might want to Mega Tyranitar. Unclear if they have Charizard or Gardevoir in the back. Gholdengo's bulky enough to already survive Life Orb Stomping before Intimidate, so I think even a Moonblast Stomping should not KO us here. The dream would be... Okay, yep, they just go for Moonblast. That's fine. Take that like a champ. Just Rock Slide, okay. I don't love the flinch chance here. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh. I think they should Tailwind now. But I'll go for my own Tailwind, switch T-Tar in. Man, that was... Yeah. Yeah. The hope would be that they like stomping into T-Tar and actually give me a Tailwind, but yeah, they just Dragon Claw. Okay, it's still fine, I guess. Still playable. Just what a turn. Wow. Bring out... Excadrill. They did go with Gardevoir. Okay. Trace's Sand Rush. Not super relevant right now. The question is, what ground type are you running? Earthquake or Stomping? You're not Telepathy. Man, just any little bit of damage on Garchomp would have put it in KO range, but that is not what ended up happening. I'm gonna go Protect Mega Knockoff. They're not Megaing Gardevoir, so I'm guessing they're just protecting and Earthquaking here, which is fine. Yeah. I think the problem is we assume Basket Legion is their last one, and that's also... If it's Scarf, that's going to be tough to beat. But that Earthquake at least doesn't do a ton, which is good. Don't think knockoff KOs in return, though. It's good damage, though. I mean, I think right now the hope would be for Excadrill to be faster. Like, without Life Orb, Earthquake's actually not doing that much to T-Tar. Like, I think we survive. So I'm leaning towards just going for Iron Head here into Rock Slide. But yeah, that's why I prioritize Brave Bird and Make It Rain on turn 1. Gardevoir Megas. Like, the thing is, they could just Earthquake Hyper Voice right now. Yeah. Both survive. I assume Gardevoir is faster than Exca. Nice. Okay, that's why Jolly Excadrill could be huge. I went for Rock Slide there to hedge for a switch because I thought they might switch Gardevoir into Basculegion, and Rock Slide would still KO Garchomp presumably while also getting damage on whatever comes in. Basculegion is indeed their last one. We still could lose this. It's not over yet. 2 turns of Sand, last turn of Tailwind on their end. How do we close this one out? Earthquaking here and protecting is fine in my opinion. Because Basculegion has to deal with a knockoff from Tyranitar and a Shadow Ball from Gholdengo, even if you knock out Excadrill here. If you don't knock out Exca, we probably just win on the spot. Even if you do, it's still fine. Okay, they correctly last respects us, but that's fine. Basically, the only thing I don't want to do in this scenario is, like, end up targeting my own Tyranitar and clicking Earthquake. Because now you have to deal with both of these, and you're not surviving knockoff or Shadow Ball, I don't think. The other play was double protect, but if I double protect, then the following turn, Tailwind is over, Sand is still up. I guess it's fine to just Iron Head in that position. Yeah, they'll last respects T-Tar, but it's fine. And this is where the Life Orb makes all the difference. Beautiful. Cool. I was just like, I don't think Basculegion can handle Tyranitar and Gholdengo, so as long as I have both of them out next to each other, they should secure us the end game. So, good example of a game to not tilt, because obviously turn 1 was incredibly frustrating. Like, flinch into Make It Rain miss was really bad, but we still found a path back forward, and the main thing... Yeah, like, I actually think that game was fascinating, because if my opponent did not Mega Evolve Gardevoir, it would have been better for them, because they had Sand Rush, which they copied from Trace. And so if you keep your Sand Rush, you do more damage with your Earthquake, but I think the Hyper Voice would have still finished off both of my Pokemon. But I think they just assumed Gardevoir would definitely be faster, but this is Jolly Excadrill, not Admin, and that made all of the difference. Sneasler, Charizard, Whimsicott, Garchomp, Aerodactyl, Sylveon. No Basculegion, which is interesting. Aerozard, which is obviously pretty good for T-Tar Exca. Aerozard. If I were them, I'd probably go like Whimsicott Garchomp maybe. I think we bring Staraptor and T-Tar in this one. I don't hate Staraptor Milotic, T-Tar Excadrill. I think by nature of this being an Aerodactyl's Charizard team, Tyranitar should have a huge inherent advantage. See if they're whiter. Probably, right? Yeah. Gholdengo would have ripped it here as a lead. You could double up onto either slot, Moonblast Close Combat. want Brave Bird, Icy Wind. Fake Out is fine. Do they Moonblast as well? Energy Ball. I don't love that. Okay. My guess now is that you Tailwind with Whimsicott. I guess I could Tailwind a match. I'm also down to just Brave Bird Icy Wind. Okay, that's fine by me. KO Sneasler. Don't miss Icy Wind, which is nice. Could bring Zard out. But if they bring Zard out, I would just protect Milo. Yeah, it's Zard. Okay. I think Tailwind here, protect Milo is fine. Garchomp presumably is their last one, so I think we want to conserve Milotic. The Energy Ball is so annoying. But Grass-type attacks are being teched on Whimsicott more to deal with Swampert, which makes a lot of sense. I've even seen Life Orb Whimsicott picking up in usage on High Ladder. They don't Mega, but it's honestly fine, because like Tyranitar can always just Mega and win the war that way anyway. Hurricane? What? Interesting. Well, I somehow get a Tailwind up. Does the Whimsicott have Encore is the question. Even if you have Encore, you can only Encore one of my two Pokemon. I do think Encoring Milotic would be kind of deadly. No? If they Encore and Solar Beam it. Yeah, maybe I actually don't mind switching Exca. Perfect. Good job to hold on to their Mega, by the way, for 2 consecutive turns. But now I've conserved Milotic for Icy Wind, which is good. But this means I'm probably eating up a Heat Wave, which is not as good. Yeah. Still fine, though. Especially because I've staggered Tailwind now, which is a pretty big deal, in my opinion. So I can bring T-Tar in. Yeah, they bring Garchomp. My guess is that they protect Charizard and hold on to their Mega once again this turn. I'm going to protect and Earthquake here. Yep, Charizard protects. That should actually win us the game, I think, because now I have 1 extra turn of Tailwind to work with. And so next turn I just Mega Evolve and click Rock Slide. I think Staraptor getting a Tailwind up in this game was like such a big deal, right? Could still lose off missing Rock Slide or Charizard getting a double protect, though, I think. But we're in pretty good shape here. The Sneasler lead was actually more annoying than I anticipated. Life Orb Chomp, yep. Tailwind Peters out, and we have a turn of Tailwind to work with. So we bring Milotic out. Is it ever not Mega here? I actually think it might be, because basically I think their play is to go for a double anyway, and if you go for a double and you get it, like I would want to, yeah, like I actually think the right place to not Mega here. Because I don't, yep, okay, Garchomp protects, so Charizard UCC doesn't Mega, does it get the double off? Well, this is why I held on to my Mega. Boy, though, do I lose off this? Like, I will control the weather, but Garchomp obviously still gets a huge Earthquake off. Okay, wait, hold on. Sand activated Sitrus, which is what I needed. I also think it might be acceptable to go Mega, knock off Chomp, protect Milotic. This is exactly why they still don't Mega? Oh, man. Or am I just faster than the Zard this whole time? I'm not. Okay. Now that was a nice play. Wait, what? They Solar Beam. Okay. But you can't Mega this next turn. Who do they Solar Beam into? I would think Milotic. They could have just Heat Wave there with the crit. That play is wild. Basically, I can protect Icy Wind, or I just click Rock Slide here. I'm going for Icy Wind. Wow. What a game. Basically, yeah, like, I mean, Solar Beam's so interesting. It would have worked, I guess, if they targeted the right slot. I actually think I don't risk missing a move right now with Rock Slide and just go for Knockoff and Scald. Like, I saw the crit come out, was like, and they didn't Mega Charizard, so I was like, oh, I guess I lose to Earthquake and Heat Wave here. But fortunately, it was still fine. If they had just clicked Heat Wave there, though, with the crit, they would have won, but they would have needed the crit, because Heat Wave does not do enough damage without Mega. So I thought it was fascinating to not Mega Evolve. Actually, I mean, it makes a ton of sense to do it as many turns as they did. Yeah, beautiful. No need to risk a Rock Slide miss loss here. But yeah, that was not how I expected the game to play out. That is why, basically, if I Mega'd any earlier with Tyranitar, then Charizard can always Mega very freely without concern, and that's a big problem for us. So that's exactly why I did not want to, like, by me not Mega Evolving, it made my opponent, like, basically not Mega Evolve, but then they Mega Evolve, like, they didn't Mega Evolve for the longest period of time. And I think that the last turn was the turn that surprised me the most, because I think to go for regular Solar Beam means that, yeah, it becomes a liability in that you can't Mega Evolve the following turn. But, yeah, super intense. I mean, I was expected to win the Weather War way earlier in that game, and my opponent did a very good job of not giving it to me. This is a Charizard team, but with some interesting support in Maushold and Primarina. If I see Maushold, I think Population Bomb is the first thing that jumps to my mind. I think Whimsicott Garchomp is a possible lead. Normally, you don't want to lead Charizard into these teams because of Tyranitar. I think Staraptor, Milotic, Tyranitar +1 is interesting here. I don't think we need Sinistcha. The argument for Sinistcha actually would be if they go with the Trick Room based strategy. I also think it could be Staraptor Gholdengo, Milotic Tyranitar. The reason behind Gholdengo is it actually really hard beats Farigiraf, Primarina, and Maushold, right? So if they lead any combination of that, Gold is quite good. Staraptor intimidates Garchomp. If they lead Charizard, it'll be interesting. Okay, we just got Primarina. I'm okay with that. I'm leaning towards Protect. Plot turn 1. This is, I think, with this lead specifically, Sinistcha would have been very nice. If I had Cini in the back, like I protect plot turn 1, turn 2, switch in Cini, make it rain, or even Shadow Ball, or even go for another nasty plot. And I think it will be important to conserve Staraptor for an Intimidate on, the Garchomp in the back. So they'll Tailwind. Let's see if they Hyper Voice. Hyper Voice or Moonblast. It is Hyper Voice. Okay. Does less than half though, so that's fine. I will pivot in Milotic right now. Protect with Gholdengo. If they have Hydro Pump / Hydro Cannon on Primarina, this is where things get interesting. Okay, Whimsicott Protect's great. Just another Hyper Voice, that's fine. I'm down to go for Icy Wind now. And make it rain. Okay, Primarina protects. It's a good protect by them. Moonblast into Milotic. Fine by me. I could have gone Shadow Ball there into Primarina, which I think would have put me in a really good spot here. But I don't mind KOing Whimsicott. No more speed control for them. And I think dealing with Milotic is going to be pretty challenging for them right now. Yeah, I wanted to push the tempo a little bit there and say, look, if you give me a double knockout, I probably just win the game. So it was a good, protect to keep themselves in it, I would say. You can bring Charizard or Garchomp out right now. I think Charizard makes more sense. But if it's Zard, I probably just go protect with Milotic, sacrifice Gholdengo, get the free switch into Tyranitar. Yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly happy to just sacrifice Gholdengo here. I'll click Make It Rain. Maybe they go for like Solar Beam into Milotic and ignore Gholdengo. But like, once again, part of what makes Tyranitar such a compelling pick in the metagame, and part of what makes Charizard struggle so much against it, is you have to time your Mega perfectly. They Mega here, but that's fine, right? Because now, how do you deal with the Tyranitar coming in after this? And I want to not take damage with Staraptor because I think that's pretty important for the potential Garchomp that they have in the back. Primarina is also now not going to do as much damage with its Water-type damage. And we click Make It Rain there because Heat Wave could miss, or they could Solar Beam into Primarina. Sorry, into Milotic. Yeah, they Moonblast. That's fine. So now we get Tyranitar in. And I think now my opponent's caught in a tricky position because essentially your Charizard's stuck on the field. It's not going to do much. You probably want to switch that out into Garchomp. But if you switch into Garchomp, it gets hit by Icy Wind. So I'm happy to just Icy Wind and Rock Slide right now. What could they have in the back? Mousehold, Farigiraf, Garchomp. None of those can take Icy Wind plus Rock Slide. So this is the beauty of Milotic covering Tyranitar. I pushed the Mega Evolution button with Tyranitar here, by the way. There's an argument to be made to not Mega to conserve it, but I do like the increased stats right now. Perfect. And one thing we can angle for, by the way, is now potentially getting Staraptor out and setting up a Tailwind with it. But this is where Icy Wind is so huge. Okay, that is not a great miss, admittedly. It's fine. The more important move in Icy Wind does connect, at least. Okay, it's just Hyper Voice, that's fine. I think the right play is to keep going for Icy Wind and Rock Slide here. If I'm them, I'm protecting Garchomp, attacking with Primarina, but I don't think Moonblast KOs Tyranitar anyway. And it's fine. Okay, nice. Is it Sitrus? Nope. Okay. And now what we should be able to do is, as long as Tyranitar doesn't get crit here, I can protect Tyranitar, pivot in Staraptor, and Tailwind. And we flinch. Okay, cool. That was fortunate, but I feel like that basically makes up for the miss from earlier. Tyranitar can always switch out here. Icy Wind Protect feels okay to me, because if you knock out Milo, then Staraptor just comes in and clicks Tailwind. Solar Beam. Let's see who it goes into. That's fine. Yeah, this is where late game Tailwind is so clutch for us, but we still have to hit the Rock Slide. Okay, now we bring Raptor out. And I just click Tailwind here. And Rock Slide. I think this game highlighted how you can miss your moves, though, with Rock Slide and Icy Wind, and it's a little bit scary, but good protect by Charizard. So I could have gone Brave Bird there, which probably just would have won us the game. Rock Slide. Does not miss. Chaos Primarina. Perfect. I actually think it's better to go Brave Bird knockoff here instead of chancing Rock Slide miss. That did so much. Wow. Yeah, that's why I went for it. This might just KO. Let's see. Yeah, they have 4%, but that's fine. Like, we know Staraptor is faster, right? So in this situation, you can knock out Tyranitar, but if you don't hit Staraptor, then another Brave Bird KOs, and I was fairly confident Brave Bird knockoff should KO. Whereas if I Brave Bird miss Rock Slide and they're bulky, then Weather Ball can knock out Staraptor after if you survive. So trying to reduce the amount of times you click Rock Slide is ideal, but we did need to click it a bunch in this one. But I think this game highlighted the coverage of having Tyranitar and the Milotic, and how good Icy Wind can be to cover for ground types like Garchomp. Whoa! Okay, this is very not meta. Hisuian Zoroark, Gallade, Raichu, Talonflame, Metagross, and Hisuian Samurott. I think T-Tar, Staraptor for sure. Okay, if I'm my opponent, how would I leverage Hisuian Zoroark? I would probably lead it, disguise it as Samurott, maybe. I'm leaning towards T-Tar, Sinistcha, Staraptor here. I think Milotic's too slow pace and passive, and I think Gholdengo... Actually, I mean, Gholdengo next to Sinistcha doesn't seem terrible here, but it feels like it might take a little bit of time to get going, and its matchup in a Samurott in particular is bad, because Samurott resists both of its attacks. So I think even having the Samurott alone makes me a little bit more hesitant to prioritize Gholdengo. Gallade, Samurott. This could be Trick Room getting set up as well, which would be interesting. I don't hate bringing Staraptor in here and Earthquaking turn 1. I think one of these could be Hisuian Zoroark. I think getting an Intimidate against both of these would be great. One of them guaranteed obviously is not Zoroark, so I'm always happy to get an Intimidate. Maybe they double up on an Excadrill, but then I get Staraptor in and can start close combating with it. Okay, nice wide guard. That's a big turn for them. Very nice turn. Okay, so both of these actually are the Pokemon, which is good to know. Life Orb as well, very cool. My guess is there's probably an Aqua Jet coming my way. I think I am down to commit to Mega Staraptor here. Close combat, Samurott. Protect Exca. My main fear would be that they, like, go for Trick Room with Gallade right now and protect with Samurott. Very nicely done. Okay. Oy vey. Do they even have Prio on Samurott? Sucker Punch, Aqua Jet? You would think so, surely. I'm gonna focus my attentions here. Yeah, it's been hard soul reads back-to-back turns. Fine. Ideally, they go Aqua, Sucker Punch, into Exca now. We bring in Cinny and just one-shot Gallade. If that happens, the game still feels totally salvageable, but they've gotten 2 back-to-back outstanding turns, so let's see. Okay. No Prio, though, from the Samurott. Does it not have a priority attack? Like, it feels so weird to not run Aqua Jet or Sucker Punch. That's the main surprise I have. But yeah, I mean, if it's Aqua Cutter and Sacred Sword and Protect, what is your 4th move? Anyway, I think this is an interesting game because the start was obviously quite frustrating in that I feel like we had a pretty good matchup and my opponent made 2 amazing plays, back-to-back turns. But when that happens, I think sometimes it's easy to get in your head and be like, oh my god, my opponent's reading me every turn, like this is going so poorly. And what's important is just to keep focusing on the game that's in front of you. So they bring Talonflame in, pressures with Brave Bird. One thing to think about is sand turns as well. I am leaning towards... This is slightly risky, but I want to Tailwind Rage Powder. They theoretically could go for just Brave Bird and attack with Samurott. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Yeah, amazing. Okay. Because now I've matched your Tailwind. Unite slash me. We survived that. And the key thing here is basically getting Excadrill under Tailwind. I will say, I think Ruslan Staraptor would have been probably kind of nice to have here. Sand ends after this turn. Don't want to switch anything in right now, I think. So I think we can actually just go for a double Protect right now. Perfect. We beat the Protect out from Samurott. Acrobatics, okay? So we stall out Sand, which is exactly what we're looking for. So their Mega is going to be Raichu or Metagross. Surely it's Metagross, right? You would think. We can always close combat into Samurott here. And Rage Powder. If it's Metagross, it still very much comes down to what the Metagross moveset is. If I switched Tyranitar in last turn, that would have been sick, but then I don't get to reset the Sand, so I don't think that's the right play. Okay. If I bring Tyranitar, like Staraptor basically has 1 life left, right? Metagross presumably is their last one. I think I bring Exca. It's Raichu. Oh. Last turn of Tailwind on both ends. I think they... I mean, I'm sure they brought Raichu because they were really worried about Milotic, but I think that is very good for us to see. think I don't mind just double protecting here. Or I actually think just attacking with Staraptor here is fine. Yeah. Yeah, I think if it were Metagross in the back, it would have been a lot dicier. But if you bring Metagross, right, like meta Talonflame, I could see how Milotic then becomes quite scary to deal with. Cool, fake out an Excadrill. Yeah, I think it's like I'd rather give up Staraptor here so that I get a free switch it into Tyranitar. Okay. I have Rock Slide, obviously. I could also go for Earthquake. I think I'm okay going Rock Slide and High Horsepower here. Because if I were them, I would probably protect Raichu, Tailwind, Talonflame. They have to make the right call here. I think the best play for them would be to protect Talonflame and Focus Blast. But even if you did that, you would have to attack through a flinch and Focus Blast the right target. And Raichu protects. Cool. Okay, so as long as we don't miss Rock Slide, we win. Rock Slide. Nice. And that's cooked to Talonflame. The other thing is, like, Talonflame sometimes doesn't carry Protect, but Raichu is almost always going to carry Protect, so that, like, leans into the decision-making a little bit as well. And then the other thing is, I don't know Raichu's spread, but I'm thinking... I want to do the calc after this. Like, if you have no... here we can just always go for Protect and Earthquake. What I wanted to calc is if you have no special attack investment, if Focus Blast KOs Tyranitar and Sand. Because this Tyranitar isn't necessarily the bulkiest, but that was another thing that factored into my decision making there. Cool. But yeah, I think if it was Metagross in the back, like, it becomes harder because it could potentially threaten Tyranitar with a one-shot. Whereas the downside of Raichu is that it really hard loses to Excadrill. And so even though we only had 1 HP left on Excadrill, that was all we needed. But I thought my opponent played turns 1 and 2 like so perfectly because I felt like we had a pretty great matchup. And then it's like the surprise. I mean, Wide Guard on Gallade isn't like super crazy, but like that was honestly like a game changer move for my opponent to have in that position. And yeah, it's just very good. This is the Focus Blast damage calc, by the way. In Sand, if you have no special attack investment, which is actually pretty common for super bulky spreads, it still actually has a very good chance to secure a knockout, but not guaranteed, right? So when you factor this on top of dealing with Rock Slide Flinch, the odds aren't terrible for us, even if they make the right play, which is protect Talonflame and Focus Blast there. If they end up Focus Blasting into Excadrill, then Excadrill faints, but then we just knock them out with high horsepower, and Talonflame always loses the 1v1 against Tyranitar. So basically, I was like, look, you would have to, 1, make the right play, which is protect Talonflame, attack with Raichu. 2, you would need to launch Focus Blast into Tyranitar. 3, you would need to attack through a flinch chance. And 4, get the right damage roll. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so thank you so much, as always, for joining me. I truly think that Sand is quite underplayed relative to the other weathers right now, especially in Rain and Sun. And so, once again, if you're tired of seeing the same Charizards and the same Pelipper Politoads over and over again with Mega Swampert, I think you'll definitely want to consider this team because, first of all, it just has a great matchup into them, I think, a lot of the times. And second of all, it's just really fun to play as well. And you get to use some cool elements like the Milotic in particular. So thanks so much, as always, for watching. Thank you to the team creator for building and sharing this composition and honestly really pushing the metagame forward, in my opinion. And yeah, I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.